So as we look at the hair, we want to think about the color of the hair, but also where light and shadow comes in. So if we look at how the light reflects on the left side, we notice that even though the pigment of my hair is dark, it almost gets lost here against the light background because light is traveling through it and around it and reflecting off of it. Hair is reflective. Even dark hair is reflective. And so that's all part of the story that we're telling through our shading. And then on the right side here, I have hair coming down onto my shoulder, which is almost entirely in shadow. So I'm going to go really dark here, and I'm going to go a little lighter here. But when I'm drawing the hair, just like when I was drawing the outlines of the hair, I want to think about my pencil being like the tip of the comb. I'm not just going to shade it in dark. I want to think like I'm almost drawing individual hairs. Obviously, I'm not going to draw every individual hair. There's thousands of them. But I want to make sure that the pencil stroke is matching what the hair is doing. In my case, my hair has a little bit of curl, a little bit of wave, and it just doesn't want to lay straight, except for maybe a little bit here around my face. And so I want to keep that in mind as I'm making decisions about what the pencil is doing. And hair is unpredictable. It tends to not be super smooth. It tends to have some life to it. So it's also okay to be a little bit loose with it too. We're creating a texture here that we want to be different than the smooth quality of our face. Okay, so those are just a couple of things to keep in mind. I'm going to do the left side first because otherwise I'm going to be dragging my hand through the dark side and I'm going to have a mess on my hand. I'm going to literally have the graphite all over my hand. I have a part, and so I want that to be visible as I think about adding marks to my hair here. I want to match what's happening. So it's going to be nice and dark. I can kind of look at it in chunks, especially because my hair is curly. It kind of happens in pieces, but that's really true of most people's hair, that it kind of lays in chunks. It sort of wants to gather together. And then take a look too, is the hair causing any shadow on the face? This would be a good place to pay attention to as we're working through here. Now I don't want my left side of my hair to disappear. I'm still going to draw that in there. I'm just going with a really light pressure so that I still get the impression of hair, but I want to make sure it's also very visible where the light's coming from. I want that to make sure that matches up with what's happening on the face. So all these things I'm thinking about as I'm shading. And I'm really using the side of the lead. Notice how sideways my pencil is laying. I kind of just do it in sections because I'm working on creating a texture. My hair frames my face, so that this line here is really important to make sure that it's making sense with the shape of my face. And then as I get down here, there's less information about which strand belongs to which strand, so it's more about creating an overall texture. I'm hitting the top of the shoulder here, and I want to think about the folds and the wrinkles of the clothes, but I'm also just going to make sure I go dark pretty well overall because I want some contrast here between the hair and the clothing. So these are all things that I'm thinking about. I also, while I'm doing all this, I want to think about the overall shape. Is that shape matching what's happening on my head? I don't necessarily have to worry about filling in every individual space because I can move this media around once I get it on the paper. I'm focusing on the darker, medium to darker areas. Okay. Then as I move to the right side of my face, look how light is reflecting right here. I want to keep that there. I want to make sure you can see that the hair is getting hit by the light. And then we get into this section right in here that gets pretty dark. Look for patches, look for chunks. Just like we have done in other drawings, we want to group values if we can for lots of reasons. One, to make our job easier. And then as we move away from that particular dark spot, we still want some media, we just don't want to go quite so dark. Again, where I come up to the face is the frame of my face. That's the shape that dictates the shape of my face. And so that's pretty important because that's going to determine if the face shape looks like my face shape. Anytime I can grab a chunk of hair to help tell the story, I'm going to do so. And I'm definitely going a little heavier handed on this side because, again, this is the side that is not being lit very well. And it's okay to get a little loosey and a little goosey because hair tends to be that way. So don't get hung up on it being perfectly smooth. Most of you, your hair takes up more space than you realize and has a little bit more character to it than you realize. Or maybe than you even want it to, but that's just the nature of hair. And then as I run into the clothing here, I can intentionally make a little bit different texture by changing the direction of my pencil stroke. Because I want, even if the values are similar, I want them to read as something different here. I want this to be clear that it's not hair, even though there is going to be some areas where it's maybe a little bit unknown or a little bit hard to tell what is what, and that's okay too. But definitely when we're getting away from the hair, we want to make sure that we can tell that. Okay, so I would just continue this process, continue filling in the hair here. And make sure that we're looking for ways to create contrast. Contrast is going to be one of the easiest ways to really create a striking image. And by contrast, I just mean a range of light and dark. If it's dark, don't be afraid to really go dark. If it's light, try to keep it light if you can. I know that this is a challenge for some people. They tend to want to be over subtle, or really not push the range of their values, but those pushing of those values is really what makes these things interesting. And you can always pull back if something gets a little bit dark. You can always come back in and lighten it up with your eraser. Don't be afraid to do some blending. Although one of the things I like about the hair is leaving it kind of rough and kind of chunky. I'll still go in and go darker here, but I think you can already see how being really intentional about where you go dark and where you go light. I can see by looking at it now I need to go a little darker closer to my face, but making sure I leave it light on that far left side there. But don't be afraid to really push the range here. That's what makes these interesting. That's what makes it so that when we step back away from it, it really reads well and interesting and doesn't just get flat. Okay?